Good morning, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have a lot to get into today. Several videos coming your way. The first is an update on the Bachelorette Rachel Lindsay divorce from Bachelorette star Bryan Abasolo. She chose him. They were together for, 4 years, and then he filed for a divorce on New Year's Eve, and it's been a hell of a year for both of them. Bryan now has a divorce coach who he has been in contact with and making some sort of seminar, a series. Part 1 of 3 was released on Saturday, and I'm going to share several clips of that with you guys. So there's an Instagram video of Rene Garcia, men's divorce coach. What's interesting, and I'm going to share probably 6 different clips for you, but you can go check the full thing out on YouTube. What's interesting is the immediate call out from Kevin Wendt. He said, "Man, this can't be real life. I don't say cringe often, but private time, but also on Instagram. This ain't the way to do it." And, of course, Bryan responds and says, "This could have been a DM, Kevin." All good, though. "I know the pressure you are under to do so. However, I was asked to be a guest on my former divorce coach's series on the divorce experience and process. I agreed as I believe in the services he offers. Not sure what conclusions you are jumping to, but maybe you can watch the video on Saturday, then come back to apologize." All right, well, we're going to watch some of that video. Kevin says, "I'm actually referring to this professional's video. I don't know the details of your divorce. My wife and I always keep our friend's business separate from our relationship. But I definitely know going on Instagram with a divorce coach and talking about it is absolutely ridiculous and childish. You wouldn't have posted it if you didn't know you're going to get some feedback. Divorce should be private between lawyers and the couple, not on some quack's Instagram page talking about his tactics to divorce. This guy is not it, dude." Now, I don't think we'll get a response from Bryan here, but I must say, I don't agree or disagree with his point, but I will say it has to be frustrating to feel as though everyone hates you for being the one who files for the divorce, right? It's always the one who files for the divorce, but it takes 2 to tango. Again, maybe it's bad PR to be doing this publicly, but I will say what he has to say in the video is not as, weaponized as some of the clips that Rene Garcia has about what men should do following a divorce or how women will target a man after a divorce. I think we can take gender out of it and say when people go through a divorce, there may be one side that feels massively bitter, and there may be unhealthy choices. There may be false accusations. There may be violence. And again, that is not one side of the coin. That's what happens, sadly, a small percentage of the time. Luckily, we're not seeing that here. We're not seeing that play out whatsoever. Rachel has all but taken the high road. I'm going to share, like I said, several different clips of what Bryan had to say. If you want to listen to the full video, I always like to credit my sources. Men's divorce coach Rene Garcia on YouTube. You can watch the full video. In between segments of Bryan talking, Rene kind of breaks down, his thoughts on the matter. Let's get into it. Here is Bryan discussing when he decided to file for divorce.
When did he know that he was going to file? Did you know that you were going to file?
I was thinking about divorce because I had already asked for.
And by the way, this is not an AI filter. This is actually this level of quality. I'm not bashing the guy. It's just very PowerPoint 1996.
Separation a few months back. I was sleeping in a different bedroom. We were already going to marriage counseling. Listen, the therapist was absolutely phenomenal. I love him. I think he's a great guy and he gives great advice. And for a while, it seemed to be working. And I actually set aside my divorce thoughts to give the relationship one last major push.
Well, that's good. So they had a therapist. I think that's good. What's confusing to me right now is there's some sort of digital blend happening here. You can see it with the fern or whatever the hell this plant is. There's I guess they're maybe sitting farther apart and they edited it to look like they were right next to each other. Again, that's just my own curiosity as to the studio layout.
But, as time went on, things just went right back to the way they were before. I needed someone who had absolutely no loyalties to either of us or any type of incentive in the outcome. I needed someone to help me process my feelings, and I needed someone to honestly give me kind of like a reality check on what was to come if I decided to move forward in this.
Bryan searched for
All right, so then they continue, and I by the way, I think I figured out why they do that digital mesh right there. Again, no one cares, but when they cut to his close-up, you see him, Bryan, using his arms, and that's probably because on the digital mesh, he couldn't do that because it would jump. You would be able to see. Either way, I mean, hey, it's a wild amount of photoshopping happening. I think there must be some sort of cut right here. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's go to the leap of faith.
leap of faith.
I didn't want to alarm my friends or my family by telling them what I was thinking. I also didn't want people that I knew to just tell me what I wanted to hear, because if I was making a mistake, if I was being an idiot, I wanted to hear it. It's not like I've been divorced before, so I had no idea what to do. And I just knew that nothing was working, and I felt I was just existing. And I hadn't felt right in a while. Reaching out to you was tricky because I didn't want this to leak to the press. Like, you know how paranoid I was about that. You know, your respect of my confidentiality was at first doubtful, but...
And Kevin Wendt would say, well, you didn't want to leak it to the press, but now you're speaking publicly about it. Look, when enough time passes, I hope Rachel speaks publicly about it. I hope they really air it out, and maybe... when everyone's done sifting through the gossip, maybe people can learn about their own lives from it. I don't know. Maybe there could be something good that comes from it. Probably not. But for all of those complaining about Bryan doing this that love The Bachelor, it's like, look, just again, Yellowstone rules. It's just like driving through Yellowstone. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy it. Don't get out of the car. You'll get bit by a bison. Just, you know what I mean? For everyone who's like, doesn't like, why this is so messy. Okay, you're watching it too.
I'm glad you have the ethics that you do, because here in LA, it's hard to trust anyone, as you must know. And it was also great that you had personal experience because you also went through a divorce.
Now, a common misconception.
All right, so then he says it's hard to trust anybody because I guess, is it because his divorce papers got leaked to the press? Yeah, I wonder how that happens. I mean, you have to know, like, if something's filed in the court system, somebody has to know it's being filed. Like, somebody has to say, hey, TMZ, they filed, you got to go look for it, right? So I don't know if that means it's a gossipy assistant working at the courthouse, or Rachel or Bryan or someone within the know could know, hey, I think they filed. You got to go check this out. All right. So the tipping point.
I asked him, what was a tipping point?
I'll start by paying you a compliment. You didn't try to influence my decision. You respected my family and my vows. You gave me ways to essentially calm the noise and just process my thoughts in a reasonable manner.
He let Bryan talk it out, as it were.
You also gave me ways to continue fighting for the bond and give me more of an objective view of the situation. And you didn't make me feel like I was a failure. You didn't make me feel like I was weak or being judged. And honestly, I really appreciated that. Right. But with that being said, now on the other end, there does come a moment when things like this may happen in your life, when you just know in your heart of hearts that you have to make a tough decision. And if I'm honest with myself, I was stonewalling because there were some great moments.
All right. Well, good to admit there were great moments. I don't think this is rare for anyone who files for a divorce, unless it's because of adultery or something crazy. I'm sure there's moments where you're like, dang, there's a lot of good that's happening, but it's just not it,
Like, I'm never going to deny that fact. And there was genuine, real love there.
Genuine, real love. So, I mean, look, hey, and again, I think this was recorded in February. So good on Bryan for, because I was a little nervous. This would be very one-sided. Like, she did this to me, she did that to me. So we don't see any of that right now, at least, which is good because, regardless of what your truth is in these situations of public spectacle, I think taking the high road is better than, say, blasting somebody online for everyone else to see.
Conditions. So you said it. How'd that feel?
That was one of the toughest things I ever had to do in my life. How I felt when I did it, I felt like I was being blindfolded, and then suddenly I was able to see sunlight. It was uncomfortable. And then there was the other end of the spectrum. There was all this fear that entered my body. It was just a huge mix of emotions. So on one end, I was in a weird friend zone situation for a while, and we started to live different lives, and our interests and our priorities, they just weren't no longer aligned. And if I look at the other aspect of it, there was this huge admiration for her and all these amazing times and amazing feelings at us both starting with very little and being part of a true team that cared about each other. And I felt that I was doing my part as a husband, and that felt great. There came a time where I needed to stop letting circumstances and my fear delay what was inevitably going to happen.
So at this point,
So, again, I don't know exactly if there's any pushback as to what those circumstances are, but he does get into mentioning probably the real reason why he filed to receive compensation, because he moved 3 times, and actually admits that Rachel was on the call to get a job in New York, which would have had them move a 4th time. He says he's happy she didn't get that job. We'll get to that next, but first, here he talks about trying to have kids.
that's what he said.
I wanted kids like anybody else, but other things were made a priority, which put a lot of pressure on the both of us. Women have a different biological clock than us. It was going to be me going along with a plan, but I was under a hell of a lot of stress. And then that was tough. That was so hard. It felt terrible. Just watching her sadness, it broke my heart. It was like I was failing expectations on all fronts. I just had to go deeper into work to cope with that pressure, and that was creating a unhealthy communication pattern between us. I mean, we didn't spend enough time with each other. I mean, in my estimation, we saw what the other person was doing in the relationship mainly on Instagram, although we lived in the same house.
You gave it your all. You gave it what you could. You took the route that most men don't take.
I personally prefer an unedited conversation, but I respect that they are chopping it up. But I like to kind of get that full tone.
Bottom line. And sadly, you put things in motion.
Yeah, I put things in motion. The lawyer that I had on hold made his recommendations, and I trusted his choices, and I just went with it. My priority in that moment was to protect my mental health and just relieve the pressure. Unlike you, someone working at the court doesn't care about privacy, and they leaked it. And to be honest, I wasn't thinking. I wasn't prepared for the added public pressure. But at the end of the day, that's LA for you, right? It's all public figure gossip is. It's a juicy headline. That's what it is. And I moved to LA with the plan to essentially not get in the way and to start another practice after we had already moved twice before. In actuality, we almost moved to New York last year. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm actually glad that TV opportunity decided to move in another direction, because I would have had to have basically made a decision to shut down, park my practice once again, and now this would be to city number 4. You don't want to limit the person that you have vows with. Like, you want to see them grow as much as possible. But to answer your question, I'm just remaining calm as much as possible and just preparing for what happens next and just taking things day to day.
You know what's so tough about this is they both have very sort of rigid professions, because on the one end, his is a brick and mortar. He has to be in a town to make money in the current setup. Now, could he make money online or through some sort of tutorial or, a subscription model? Maybe, but not as a physical chiropractor. And Rachel Lindsay is trying to was trying to be like a full-time correspondent, like in the news, right? Pop culture. Now she can kind of work a little bit more flexible with higher learning, although luckily for them, they are recording live in person. I do think podcasting is done way better live in person. So you get to see this rigidity here where he's moving for her, and you get that because she's probably bringing in more money, as was evident. So he's kind of got to move for her, but then he's got to restart the whole thing. Again, everything we already covered, which was that, hey, if one person thrives more than the other, say what you want about Bryan. Say he's the worst chiropractor in the world because, and although I went to him and I thought he was a perfectly normal, good chiropractor. But if you were to say his business was lousy, well, does that mean he's not entitled to 50% of the revenue that was earned by the partnership? You know what I mean? So with all that, I think if we can learn anything from this, it is that the best way to handle this, if we could have turned back the clock, was maybe to get mediators involved, try to do that privately, and probably sign an NDA where they both say, we wish the best for the other person, we grew apart, and no one knows about anything else. That didn't happen. And, a lot of times with lawyers, it's they bring a gun to a knife fight. And I'm not blaming the lawyer here, but who knows if they had to play hardball to get what they felt was fair out of Rachel. The other alternative is Bryan just shut his mouth, filed for the divorce, tried to get nothing out of Rachel, and then cut his losses. That alternative would be tough if he's close to bankruptcy, in debt because he's moved his business and truly feels like he's deserved X, Y, and Z. Again, that's just how it's going to play out. I personally don't think what he did, asking for the $16,000 and getting $13,000, the judge ruled that as fair, so I don't blame him for that. If the high road was just a guy who could cut his losses and start at zero, I think maybe that would have been a different conversation, but I'm guessing there's debts involved, and it's just like about trying to get above water here after sacrifices that were made. That's my opinion. After watching this, do I feel icky? I don't know if I feel icky, but as just an innocent bystander, I think it's fascinating. And I think if we just don't contact them, Bryan or Rachel, and just let people think about things as it is, let the dust settle, I think, rooting them both on to go live a happy rest of their lives. Let me know what you guys think in this comment section. Keep it respectful. We'll be back with more content right after this.